GPB, winner of 11 Emmy Awards, including Station Excellence. Thank you for your support.
The 2012 Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series, brought to you from Georgia Public Broadcasting. The general election debate for Public Service Commission District 5.
Good afternoon. I'm Dennis O'Hare, host of All Things Considered on 90.1 WABE. We'd like to welcome our viewers and our studio audience to the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series, originating from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting. This is the debate between the candidates running for Georgia's Public Service Commission in District 5. Now, the Public Service Commission oversees telecommunications, electric, and gas services in the state. The 5th District of the PSC covers 23 counties west of Metro Atlanta. Some of the larger counties include Carroll, Coweta, Meriwether, and Troup. And although the commissioner must reside in the district, this is a statewide election. Now, let's meet the candidates, and they are in alphabetical order. David Staples, who is a web technologies architect for an international manufacturing company, and incumbent Stan Wise has served on the Public Service Commission since 1995. Commissioner Wise declined our invitation to this debate. He is represented by an empty podium. So here's the format for tonight's debate. In the first section, David Staples will answer a question from one of our three panelists. He will then ask a question of his absent opponent, and then we will continue the program questioning the candidate until we run out of time. And finally, the candidate will have 30 seconds to make a closing statement. Now, before we get started, let's meet our three panelists, selected by the Atlanta Press Club. First, Jean Bonner, an Atlanta-based radio reporter and producer for Georgia Public Broadcasting. Next is Crystal Edmondson. She is the broadcast editor of the Atlanta Business Chronicle. And our final panelist is Christy Swartz, business reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Now let's get started with the debate. We'll start by asking David Staples questions from one of our panelists. He'll have 60 seconds, to respond to the question. And Jean Bonner will ask the first one.
Good afternoon, Mr. Staples. Thank you so much for coming to the debate. You favor risk sharing for the construction of Plant Vogtle. The idea has been rejected by the commission. If you're elected, how would you get that idea through?
Well, you know, it does take 3 out of 5 commissioners to pass any sort of a vote. I believe that the support could be there, but currently with the makeup of the commission, with the person in the District 5 seat anyways, he's been termed a bully on the commission, and he tends to tell the other commissioners how they're going to vote. So I think in that same regard, without necessarily resorting to bullying tactics, I think that the discussion can be had that this risk-sharing mechanism is not only appropriate, but it is absolutely needed to ensure that all consumers in Georgia have the protection that they are supposed to be receiving from the monopolies and from the various cost overruns and the issues that are in front of us with the Vogtle construction for reactors 3 and 4.
With that first question done, we'll have more from our panel in just a moment. But now it's time for our candidate to ask a question of his absent opponent, represented by the empty podium. Mr. Staples, you have 30 seconds for the question, and then 30 seconds to give us your thoughts on it.
Thank you. My question is, do you honestly believe voters are actually okay with you sleeping during hearings, reading the newspaper during hearings, accepting $14,000 in lobbyist gifts, accepting 91% of your campaign contributions from the attorneys, the executives, and the lobbyists of the utilities you're charged with regulating? And do you believe that it's okay having lobbyists that are utility lobbyists actually lobby voters to vote for you, namely Mr. Michael Sean Davis, without identifying themselves to the voters as lobbyists?
Right. Mr. Staples, you have 30 seconds to elaborate if you wish.
Sure. Yeah, I believe that Stan probably understands that some of these things voters understand are not ethical and they're not right. And I believe his response previously has been that they are completely legal. So whether or not they're legal, that doesn't necessarily make them right. I don't think we need a law for a lot of things that tell us what our morals and our ethics are. So if we replace someone into that seat that has a certain set of ethics and that has a certain set of morals, we don't have to worry about these types of occurrences.
Thank you, Mr. Staples. And if you're joining our program in progress, this is the debate among the candidates in the general election for Georgia's Public Service Commission District 5. And as a reminder, the incumbent Stan Wise declined our invitation to this debate. We now return to our panel of journalists who will ask questions of Mr. Staples until our allotted time runs out. He has 60 seconds to respond to the questions, and we begin this round with a question from Crystal Edmondson.
Mr. Staples, keeping with the theme of ethics, do you support a ban or limit on lobbying gifts?
You know, I do. I think that a ban would certainly help the situation on the commission. I know that the legislature has talked about a $100 gift cap for the lobbyist gifts for the legislature. I certainly support that extending on to the Georgia Public Service Commission as well. But of course, if we elect people who have a certain set of ethics, who have a certain set of morals, we don't even have to worry about having such sorts of bans or caps on those gifts and contributions in the first place.
Christy Swartz, your turn to ask a question.
Thank you. Mr. Staples, there's a recent interview that I read, and I'm asking you to clarify a statement that you said in there. This is related to Plant Vogtle, and you're saying that Georgia Power could have delayed building Vogtle and replaced that with solar. So those two units are 1,100 megawatts, which is quite a lot for energy, and it's quite a lot for solar. So to be clear, are you saying that we could be replacing that exact amount with solar, and how, given our regulatory structure, could that happen?
I wouldn't think that we would replace it with solar altogether. Looking at the demand currently for power, we have base load and then we have peak. Solar is great for those peak hours, while nuclear is great for the base load. From the numbers that I've seen, we have plenty of base load power, which is why the time of use comes into play right now, where they've got the rates set so that it's cheaper during the off-peak hours and it's rather expensive during your peak hours. So instead of building capacity for the base load where we don't necessarily need it, perhaps building some extra peak power where the power is the most expensive when you look at the wholesale power rate curves. You know, if we offset that peak power with solar, it certainly becomes a lot more feasible and a lot more fiscally responsible to build this kind of power out instead of perhaps building more base load right now.
Gene Bonner has the next question.
Mr. Staples, incumbents have such an advantage in many state races, and certainly I would say in the PSC. I'd like you to talk a little bit about why this race is worth your time, and in the event that you lose, how will you continue to fight for the issues that the PSC oversees?
Absolutely. I was actually asked to run for the Public Service Commission. The Libertarian Party and other third-party candidates, as well as political bodies and independent candidates, qualify at a later date than Republicans and Democrats. So once the qualifying period had passed for the Republicans and Democrats, we had noticed that there was no Democrat in the race, and that there were two people in the primary for the Republicans that a lot of people just didn't feel satisfied with. So they approached me, asked me if I would be interested in running. I said, you know, I would certainly consider it, and took my time researching it, and finally decided that yes, I did need to run. That it looks like you know, the primary challenger unfortunately wasn't going to be able to unseat Stan, and that it's absolutely time for Stan to go. So you know, after a lot of thought and consideration, talking to my wife, we decided it's probably best for me to go ahead and try and get Stan out of office. And after the election, you know, I'll have to think about what's to come next.
Thank you, Mr. Staples. Crystal Edmondson has the final question, and Mr. Staples, just a heads up, because of our time crunch, we have just 30 seconds for the reply to this one.
Okay.
Final question. Should Georgia have targets for the use of renewable energy? Should there be specific benchmarks?
I do believe that there should be targets. I don't necessarily favor mandates. I do favor incentivizing those targets, though. Currently, Georgia Power has a guaranteed 11.25% profit, and I think that instead of having a fixed profit or profit margin, I would much rather see a variable profit margin that is determined among a number of different factors, and one of those would, of course, be targets that are set for renewable energy, as well as various other efficiency measures that could be put into place in operations.
Thank you, Mr. Staples, and we have no more time for questions. This is the point at which the candidates for Georgia's Public Service Commission District 5 would have 30 seconds for closing statements. But once again, Stan Wise has declined our invitation for this debate. Therefore, our only closing statement comes from David Staples.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Georgia Public Broadcasting and everyone for putting on this debate. I certainly appreciate everyone being here, and I appreciate the viewers for tuning in on a Sunday afternoon with such nice weather. This race is about ethics. Ethics matter, and ethics is the main issue in the race, and it's a nonpartisan issue. It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, a Libertarian, a Green, an Independent. Ethics matter. I would appreciate your vote on November 6th or through early voting, and would look forward to serving you on the Georgia Public Service Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Staples. And that concludes our debate. We'd like to remind voters the general election will be held on Tuesday, November 6th. Our thanks to the candidates and our panel of journalists, and we'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club for arranging today's debate. For more information about the Atlanta Press Club, visit atlantapressclub.org. The debates that air on Georgia Public Broadcasting will be archived on the Press Club's website. This broadcast has been streamed and will be available on demand on GPB's website, gpb.org. We pause for a moment now to remember a friend who worked on these debates for years. Jeff McGee died suddenly earlier this month. He was a photographer who brought real joy to his work on the Atlanta Press Club debates, but far more important than that, Jeff tried to embrace everyone he knew. He was also a minister who emphasized his work with those in need and in prison. Jeff McGee was one of the kindest people any of us will ever know. Our deepest sympathies are with his wife, Cassandra, and we will miss him. I'm Dennis O'Hare. Thanks for joining us for the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series. Stay with GPB for more debates coming up next.
Become a better voter. Debates continue next with the 12th Congressional District on GPB.
This is a GPB original production.